Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and especially for picking my book. I'm very honored to be here. I'm honored that you've taken the time to hear me out. I'll try to use the time very efficiently. There are 2 points I want to cover. One is the state of the Egyptian economy, and the second is the strategic implications of the United States. It is a tentative faith of a big view of history and liberal curriculum around the world that all problems are solvable, and that enlightened people, particularly with advanced degrees of ideas, involved in any part of the world and transform thousands of countries into silver purses. Sometimes this is true, sometimes it's not. This, of course, runs against experience. The vast majority of societies in history have failed. My belief is that Egypt is one of those countries which will indeed fail, and probably cannot prepare economically. I speak with the perspective of many years of developing economics and analysis of developing economies. Why? Sorry. Can you hear right now? Sorry. How do you get a country that has 70% of its people on the land and nonetheless exports 50% of its food? Seems highly anomalous. Egypt, of course, used to be the breadbasket of the world empire, as well as productive pieces of real estate in the world potentially. But it's not a catastrophic position. It's a catastrophic. There's something on Bloomberg News this morning, which I read rather than Amtrak Wi-Fi, that there's now an endemic shortage of propane, which the vast majority of Egyptians use to cook with. You don't have gas hydrants, so you have tanks of propane and butane to cook at home. To the point that the black market price of a canister of propane is 50 times that refrigerator price. And suppliers of propane from overseas complain they haven't been paid for months. That's also true of suppliers of oil, suppliers of a number of foodstuffs. There are numerous reports that basically indicate that when we see the Egyptian reserve numbers going down close to empty, we see that the Egyptian central bank is running on fumes. It doesn't take into account the fact that probably several billion dollars in the hole to suppliers that haven't paid. So vaccines have disappeared from Egyptian government clinics. Parents can't, newborn children can't get their children vaccinated. Many foodstuffs are simply not available. Diesel fuel is chronically not available. There are peddlers carrying plastic canisters of diesel fuel on the street, selling it at 4 or 5 times the official price. The economy really is in a state of breakdown. How does a country which was once rich come to this? My thesis is that this is done deliberately by dictators to maintain power. I'd like to contrast 2 countries with roughly similar population sizes, namely Mexico and Egypt. Mexico, until the reforms that were instituted began under the sinister retired administration roughly 20 years ago, had 90% of its land assigned to collective farms, ejidos. The vast majority of Mexicans lived on government-owned land in collective farms. Mexican historian and Raza wrote a terrific piece showing that the Mexican government had deliberately adopted the Stalin collectivization system in order to keep peasants tied to the land, unproductive, hungry, and dependent on government subsidies in all the years after that revolution. And that's one of the reasons why 20% of the Mexican population is moved to the United States. Because Mexico has a number of advantages, one is the safety valve of exporting a fifth of its people to the north. Secondly, it had close economic relation to the United States. Mexico is more or less a country that really has terrible problems. Egypt did exactly the same thing under a succession of military regimes which have been in power for 60 years. The reason that Egyptian agriculture is highly underdeveloped is because the military governments want to keep people bureaucratically literate, poor, and controlled on the land. Cairo was already a city of 50 to 60 million, and Mexico City was a city of 25 to 30 million. Land as people come, the streets, the shanties, the cemeteries. So keeping the population back was the top priority. Productivity in agriculture is one of the great weapons for change. The world, you have a country like the United States where the population can produce enough for the rest of us to eat, plus a huge surplus to export. Then you don't require a lot of people to sit in the land. You've got a mobile population, which you have to educate, absorb industry, services, and so forth. So, Egyptian society entered the 21st century after the liberal policy of practiced by Nasser and Saddam and Mubarak and succession, with characteristics that really show a deeply pre-modern society with a small veneer of industry on top. By pre-modern, take two social measures. According to the World Health Organization, 90% of Egyptian adults are subject to what is euphemistically called genital mutilation. This is not necessarily Muslim practice, although President Morsi's favorite cleric, Imam Kardala, came back to triumph from Qatar after the World War, justifies it as a Muslim practice. Nonetheless, the fact that the vast majority of Egyptian women are subject to this pre-modern barbarity is an important index of character of society. Second number, about a third of Egyptians marry cousins. There are worse places than that. This called consanguineous marriages, cousin marriages. Pakistan is close to 60%. What does it say about a society when very large numbers of people marry cousins? In pre-modern society, ties of blood are a source of protection. You have family, clan, tribe. The idea that somebody in a remote city, say New York City, is going to vote for someone like Carol Maloney. I met while she spoke at my seminar, but I really don't know the person. I'm quite sure he's not related to him. She'll come to a faraway city like Washington and sit in a room with a few hundred other people under similar circumstances. And they will decide on things that are existential goals, the economy, taxes, whether they go to war, what the laws are. And whatever the outcome, I'm going to support that. In pre-modern society, it seems like insanity. It seems like something out of the very lives. How do you trust what is unrelated? So people marry within the clan in order to guarantee growth. Profoundly pre-modern society. Egypt is in a tragic position of going from infancy to senility without passing through maturity. And from the big picture, stepping back from the immediate circumstances of the Middle East, a number of grand changes have occurred in the world economy, which are catastrophic for Arab world in general and for the Egyptians in particular. I think the progress, I believe in globalization. I spent my career as a global observer, a card-carrying global observer for Wall Street. It's good, but it is surely not good for everyone. Because when you rip out the most traditional society and push people out of a context where life has certainty and floating to the modern world, then they're not making tribes walk a month or two out of the Amazon and run a trading post after there's not all. In the case of Egypt, the great catastrophe is the rise of Egypt. Because once the Egyptians became wealthy, they, like us, become price insensitive to things like the cost of feed rate. Very few Americans really care about the price. It's such a tiny part of our life that it means very little to us. We do care about the price of oil sales. In the case of Egypt, because of the vast unproductivity of agriculture, the near 50% literacy of certain of the population, and the order, effectively pre-modern tribal conditions of life, which characterize most of the population, the number of reasons which what data are precise is that roughly half of people in Egypt live on $2 a day because of the $2 a day. Well, the loaf of pita bread costs a penny or two, subsidized by the Egyptian government. People are able to get food because they have subsidized protein, they have subsidized bread to eat vegetables, certain amount of beans, which are the most important protein source from food. Animal protein imports were pulled down by about half since the law was overthrown. And the countries have been running out of money to purchase other things. Now, two things happen. One is the price of food went up enormously because the Asians don't care how much they pay for it. They want to eat more wheat and they want more food grain. Chinese are rich now. Spiritually, they use sufficiently rich to be price insensitive to feed. It's not that much. The price of wheat will pop up to $9 a bushel. And the cost to Egyptian food is enormous. Subsidies make up 3/4 of the Egyptian budget, and the Egyptian budget deficit is now considerably worse than the budget deficit. About 12% of gross domestic product. It's the subject of dire warnings by every financial authority, economist, needs to be cut. And of course, there are many growth capacity finance capacity temporarily. The second thing that happened is Egypt had really one critical source of revenue, one important earner that allowed them to compensate for other weaknesses, and that was tourism, which earned about $12 billion. Suez Canal earned $4 billion a year. Their only other real source of foreign exchange is the remittances of workers who were brought, those that have become very considerably because of the cost of living, which is one of the largest sources of employment for Egyptians. So their main source of foreign exchange collapsed, their expenditures went up. So basically, Egypt is short about $3 billion a month in pure trade terms, as opposed to $1 billion a month 3 or 4 years ago. That was not the cause of the fall of Mubarak. Mubarak was a monstrosity that would fall at some point in time, but it certainly was one of the triggers. Dictators are able to keep people under their rule in return for providing security, basic security and conditions of life, and security in streets. Once people realize, even if they're not actually starving, that they cannot count on dictators to provide security. It's much harder for dictators to stay in power. To some extent, the Syrian problem is parallel to that incredible, of course, that the Syrian civil war began after the food riots over a year ago. So Egypt, as in movie papers, had $35 billion in cash. When Mubarak was still in office, it's now at $15 billion. That's not really cash. It's more like that counts their gold and their drawing rights of the international monetary fund, which really aren't cash. Their cash in hand is about $6 or $7 billion, and that's probably effectively exhausted, but they probably owe that much to suppliers to whom there are arrears. So you see shortages pop up every day, and most of what Mohammed Morsi is doing is going hand in hand to whomever will give him money, will give him the appearance of money, to try to keep the central bank afloat, to try to keep the checking account cracked. The only substantial donation we got recently was from Qatar. The leader of Qatar turned up in Cairo, I believe it was August 10th, and it was just around the second week of August. The same day that Morsi fired the old guard of Germans, exactly those people who were there supposed to guarantee American interests because they were our long-standing friends, the recipients over decades of $1.5 billion of American military aid a year. Morsi just chucked them out and put in officers who were fairly unknown but had affiliations with the Muslim Brotherhood. That was under the promise of $2 billion for Qatar. He got $500 million, and then you see reports in the Egyptian press were really happy because Qatar is going to accelerate payments from this $2 billion which we haven't got. We might get another $500 million by October. That means they can import some beans. It's that close. And of course, the Obama administration announced in August, later in August, an emergency package of $1 billion, which really isn't $1 billion. It would spend $500 million in debt relief and various other kinds of money. Maybe it's a few hundred million in spendable money, which is made by the tax routine of existing items in the budget. That's the subject of historical debate in Congress now. Why did the Obama administration suddenly find it necessary to come up with $1 billion, really some amount of emergency aid package? This brings us to the politics of the region. That's the appropriate segue. The reason is that Saudi Arabia did not provide any money to Egypt. For months, those of us who were looking at Egypt's foreign exchange disappearing, everyone, particularly the corrupt military, pulling money out of the country, central bank reserves disappearing, shortages beginning to develop. Ask the question, geez, they're short of $3 billion a month in pure trade terms. Maybe they've got $1.5 billion coming in tourism this canal. So they're looking at, some of it's going to $18 to $24 billion in financing. That's a lot of money. Who's going to show that? And the Obama administration privately said, don't worry, the Saudis will do it. And the conservative side, the Republicans, Fuad Johnson, an article in Tablet magazine, say, don't worry. You have a Sunni affinity between Saudi Arabia and Egypt, the common enemy is Iran, that will give new access to the Middle East, and the Saudis will take care of Egypt's financial problems. And they were both wrong. So, if you will, there was a bipartisan misestimate of what was likely to occur. And I don't believe the Obama administration's view was really that much different than that of the Eastern Republicans. Why did the Saudis turn? The answer is very simple. The Saudis are as afraid of the Muslim Brotherhood as they are of the Iranians. And that comes out, you only need to read the Saudi press and which is available on the web, to see their rage about tribulation about the Muslim Brotherhood. What's the Muslim Brotherhood? Sarah gave a capsule before it. Just read a bit of Sayyid Qutb, the great founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, the great fierce in the 1950s. In the view of the Muslim Brothers, the Muslim world is in catastrophic decline. It's being corrupted by Western culture. It's being overtaken by alien Western values. In traditional society, the rigid rule of family, of clan, of ruler, of clergy, can survive the Muslim world unless drastic measures are taken. From the standpoint of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Saudi royal family is a feckless and corrupt bunch of reprobates who pay a lot of money to promote traditional Islam, but don't walk the walk themselves and certainly are not qualified to be leaders of the Muslim world at a critical time. And the Muslim Brotherhood, starting with its founder, Hassan and Sayyid Qutb, reorganized Islamism along the model of a modern totalitarian vanguard party. Think of it as the Nazi Party, but with crescent instead of a swastika, and Islamism instead of National Socialism as an ideology. It's a meritocracy. If you're a smart young university student, as Islamist, in Saudi Arabia, the Muslim Brotherhood looks like a very attractive alternative to you, unless you happen to be one of the 3,000 members of the royal family who are on the land. It has a much broader perspective base. If the Saudi regime, which has many problems of succession, many problems pleasing the world population, most of which is poor, if the Saudis are overthrown internally, it will be because of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Jordanians, the Hashemite monarchy of Jordan, is now under siege by the Muslim Brotherhood. This is widely covered in the press. I don't think I have to go into detail. So for the standpoint of the Saudis, it would really be like giving money to your respective grave digger, and they're simply not going to do it. That error in this, I think, the Saudis know the Muslim Brotherhood well. They know it as a dangerous, revolutionary, expansionist organization as opposed to the secular and peaceful organization that Jim Clapper characterized it as. And in fact, it has been thought of on a bipartisan basis by the foreign policy establishment. So, because the American foreign policy establishment of both parties took, let's say, a far too benign and optimistic view of the character of the Muslim Brotherhood, they misestimated how the Muslim Brotherhood would be received by the critical source of funding for Egypt. As a result, Egypt's economic crisis is sitting there like an open wound, and you have people running in tight little circles trying to come up with an emergency response. That's the sequence of events. If I don't have a personal position on exactly how to deal with aid to Egypt, because I think the problem is much broader. You have a country which, after 60 years of catastrophic mismanagement and wrenching changes in the world economy, which was left behind, had created a situation where, as an old developing economist, I had no words of comfort for. Like the main farmers that can't get there. Turkey has major problems, but if you go to universities in Turkey, as I have, you find not just first-grade Turkish students, many of whom I've hired over the years, particularly in the quantitative areas. You find tons of European students who go to Turkish universities because they're good, they're cheap, and they're fun. You find tons of Western professors. They were big math professors away from Cambridge. Now, only a tiny, small strata of Turkish society does that. And Turkey produces first-rate engineers. Egypt produces no qualified engineers. Mohammed Morsi studied in the United States. He couldn't get the education in Egypt. The Egyptian universities are warehouses. You have no skilled elite. You have a tiny strata of tech-savvy, Facebook-friendly young people. But remember, the number of broadband connections in Egypt is, I think, 3 per 100 people population, 30 in South Korea. People don't have the internet. There are a handful of university students who might hang around internet cafes, but you don't have the people to have the industry. You're not going to have South Korea, you're not going to have Turkey, because you've got a literal labor force and an unqualified managerial class and a catastrophic economic situation. How is that likely to work out? Well, since they're running out of money, you do what any dictator does when you run out of money. You ration. A possible outcome is that Egypt becomes a North Korea of not a permanently limited country where the regime rules, because if you want to eat, you have to get a ration card from the local Muslim Brotherhood office. As the North Koreans demonstrated, it can be a highly effective means of political control, but it's also extremely dangerous because when you have a new regime that's only consolidating power that claims democratic legitimacy to impose that kind of austerity on people, basically the whole country on food stamps, has extremely, it doesn't contribute to political stability. So I think it's unlikely that the Egyptian economy will be stabilized, and it's unlikely that the Muslim Brotherhood will be a stable, permanent, and effective ruling party.